Thank you for taking the time to join me today. Like I said, I hope this week has been as unstressful as possible. Today's webinar is part of a three-part series, a trilogy, if you will, where we're going to be looking at the 3A's: assessment, attainment, and addressing gaps. Obviously, addressing gaps is a massive thing at the moment, looking at sort of where learning loss lies. Speak slowly then, couldn't get my words out. So yeah, today predominantly we are going to be looking at sort of the assessment side and moving into attainment. Now, these are the key areas: the formative and summative assessments available, the unit tests and activities, and the multiplication tables check. Now, you might be familiar with a lot of these things. You might not have used them at all, or you might have just seen them in your EducationCity account. But yeah, these are going to be the sort of foundations of today's webinar. Now, as always, if you have got any questions for me, I really do love to hear from you. You'll find that there is a Q&A button on your taskbar. You can click into that, you can type in a question, and that will ping up on my screen and I can answer that live for you. There we go. You can also choose to ask questions anonymously as well. So it's quite handy, that one. Just be aware, if you do use the chat box, that won't bring up on my screen, so I won't be able to answer that as quickly as I would the Q&A feature as well. Also, as always, the account I'm using is a made-up school. Don't worry about any names or information that you're going to see. It is all made up and set up so that I can show you what it will look like. And as I mentioned, it's an English school as well. If you're joining me from outside of England, thank you. But I will point out any differences for you along the way. Now, I think that's just about everything from me. Let's head into EducationCity and we can get started. And here we are logged in. This is my made-up account. Now, if you're watching this back, it will be recorded. If you are watching this back and your screen looks slightly differently to mine, don't worry. You may be looking at the classic view, which looks like this. Now, this obviously you can use this if you wish to, that's not a problem. However, I do recommend the new view. You can click on the ribbon just there, head to the new view page. I just think it's easy to navigate. It's got some different features to it, and I just find it a bit better actually. So this is the page I'm going to be using, and I'll start off the formative and summative assessments. You'll find those right there. So this tile does everything for you. Now, if you're new to EducationCity assessments, what you will find is a range of assessments, formative and summative, across sort of primary levels. So year 1 to year 6, that is, or P2 upwards, I believe. So you'll find those, you can set those for a class or a group. So really easy to differentiate just there as well. There we go. And you're literally working your way through these 4 steps. You select who you want the assessment to, who you want to have the assessment, sorry. You're going to select which assessment you want, and you can select the academic level just here. Now, the benefit here is that you can actually select the level beforehand. So if I'm selecting year 4 class, I can actually look at a year 3 assessment. Students won't know that it's a year 3 assessment. They will only know the title that I give it. So it's a really good way of finding out what gaps lie from the previous academic year. So come September, sort of I get my new class in. It's a really good way of finding out what gaps were left behind from the previous academic year. But same goes if you're looking, let's say I'm in year 4, I want to see what they already know in year 5 for their new teacher. You can do that as well. So really, really useful. It does come in really handy. So just going to go through a year 3 one just there. And then you obviously have those across our core subjects: English or literacy, maths or numeracy, and science there as well. And you'll find a range of assessments. Now, like everything on EducationCity, our assessments are mapped to the curriculum, and that will be whichever curriculum you follow. So if you're like me and you follow the National Curriculum 2014, what you will find is that there are formative and summative English reading comprehension assessments, and there is an end of year punctuation and grammar and spelling assessment in English. In maths, you will find that there is an end of year assessment just there and a formative assessment, but you also get unit assessments in England as per the national curriculum. So it may look differently to you if say you're using the curriculum for excellence, but don't worry, it is all mapped out to the curriculum that you follow. So don't be alarmed if you find that it looks slightly different to me. So I'm going to go for a formative maths assessment just there. And we're going to scroll down, click next, and we're going to move on to the date. Now, this is the published date, and the benefit of this is that if you're anything like my school, we used to have set weeks that we used to do our assessments in. And we had like a set week in the autumn term, a set week in the spring term, and then obviously the end of year assessments in the summer term. If you know those dates, you can set these ahead of time. So if, say, for instance, I don't know, the end of May is your end of year summer term assessment, you can pop these in here for that date, and it will do it automatically. It will publish it to students on the dates that you have set. So useful. I'm just going to set for maybe a week. You can have a look there. You've got those 5 days. Or if this is something you're only doing over a couple of days, you can do that there. It really is entirely up to you. It's so useful. And I say you can sort of plan ahead of time. So if you know your assessment week, you can pop in all the assessments that you're using for that week. Also, benefit of our assessments, if you didn't know already, they are marked for you. That's right, no matter what curriculum you follow, no matter what assessment you choose, it is marked for you, marked automatically. And in a lot of cases for formative assessments, students will actually receive an independent revision journal. So essentially what the system does is it recognises gaps in that student's learning. So little Johnny here, he's got all of his fraction questions incorrect, or quite a few of them incorrect. The system recognises that, and it builds a revision journal around those areas, giving him fraction work to do, but also recognising that foundational skill of division, multiplication, and he will have that in his folder. And that is done automatically for you. So handy. So even if you use an alternative source for your sort of formative assessments, your sort of whole school assessments, you've got EducationCity assessments to give you that insight, to give children that independent revision that they've got control over, but also this data gets tracked for you as well. So you can do as many assessments as you want to throughout the academic year. They all get marked, they all get tracked, and many of them will create those revision journals. What more could you want out of an assessment? So handy. So step 4 is the title, and this is what your students will see. So I'm going to change this so that it is a little bit more informal. So I'm just going to type in there, maths assessment, and I'm going to put summer, and I'm going to pop in the date that I've set it for as well. Because if you're anything like me and your memory is appalling, it's a great reminder of when you set it. But also if you can decide to use the same assessment more than once. So for example, if you have submitted, I don't know, the beginning of year an assessment, and then at spring term you want to use the same assessment, you can use comparative data in the success tracker. So it does come in really handy. I'm just going to pop in year 4 there to remind me which class I've set it for as well. Really easy to do. Next, you've got that summary. Who, what, when, title, done. It is that simple, and EducationCity takes control of the rest. It's so handy. Right, I can see I've got a question here. Let's have a look at those. Does EducationCity generate a new assessment each time you set it, or is it the same assessment each time? So thank you for that question. Really, really good question there. Thank you. So the assessments are the same. And as I say, they're designed so that you can look at comparative data. So the questions themselves might be in a different order, so as not to have children cheating if they're completing the assessment at the same time. But it will contain the same questions so that you can look at that data in the success tracker. Thank you for that question, really good one. Keep them coming. Thank you very much. So formative and summative assessments, you'll find those in the assessment area. As I mentioned, you will always also find unit assessment as per the curriculum that you follow. But what you maybe don't realise is that you can use the activities on EducationCity as a really, really useful formative assessment. What do I mean? Well, if I head into the subjects area, let's head into maths, and I'm just going to head into lower key stage 2 as an example. We can find an activity based upon the area or unit that we've taught. So let's say, for instance, time. Time's always one of those units that some children find it so easy, some children can struggle with it. And you can search, obviously, for those tools just there. We've got comparing time. If I search for time again, let's have a look for telling the time. You've got these activities, and obviously we can have a look at those. This is obviously telling the time, including Roman numerals. We can find the one that we are after. Here we go, converting time between 12 and 24-hour clocks. This might be the thing that I'm looking for. Because the activities are marked for you, much like the assessments, these are a great way of assessing whereabouts your students are at in terms of their understanding and their knowledge about a particular subject area. Again, they can be repeated more than once, much like the assessments. They can be added to a folder like the assessments. And because they're marked by the system, that data is available for tracking in the success tracker as well, just like the assessments. So think of these activities as well as being sort of classwork tasks, mini formative assessments that you can use to suss whereabouts your students are at. Even down to something like, let's head back towards the top there, or let's have a look for multiplication and division, for example. And if you want to know whereabouts your students are at in understanding, I don't know, the 7 times table, set them the 7 times table challenge just there. Let's head into the times table bundle just there. As you know, we've got sort of the times table bundle. You've got a video, you've got multiplication and division activities, and there is a challenge as well. And this will assess their knowledge of the 7 times table in terms of their times tables, in terms of sort of missing word division problems, in terms of their understanding of the commutative law and inverse measures as well. So use those as like mini assessments. While we're here, let's head to part 3, which is the multiplication tables check. Down the bottom just here. Let's filter down just that one, and you can see we've got 6 seconds, 10 seconds, and 20 seconds. Now, if you're joining me from England, you'll know that year 4s at some point are required to complete a multiplication tables check. And we have a 6-second one as per the government standard. It's replicated in exactly the same format in the display on screen and how the students can answer those. But we've also created a 10-second and a 20-second one so that children can sort of build up that instant recall and they can sort of build up their knowledge of their times tables as well as their accuracy in their recall as well. Now, because this is classed as an assessment with us, again, it's marked for you. So we can add one of these into a folder, we can give it to our children or our students, and they can complete it and it will be marked for you. So we can see here, I've popped in the multiplication tables check. along with a times table topic tool and one of our new games just there. And we can head straight into tracking, and it's so clear to see whereabouts our students are at. I've set an 80% pass rate on the multiplication tables check, and we can have a look through, see who has scored what. Outcome just there. Really, really easy, so simple to see. Like I said, because this is marked as an assessment, that data is tracked in the success tracker. Now, if I head onto the home page, I can see I've got a question. I'll come to that very quickly. We've got our success tracker here, and I'm just going to pop dates in for this week, just so that you can see what that looks like from the aspect of the multiplication tables check. You can see you've got, it's a topic tool, it's the MTC or the multiplication tables check, and you've got those results just there. Now, again, a quick tip, something I always did when I was teaching with my class is, if, particularly in maths, if they didn't understand a question, to put a 0 next in their answer box. That would inform me that they don't understand that area, they're struggling in that area, and they're not just kind of having a go and sort of addressing misconceptions essentially. This is so relevant in terms of the multiplication tables checker, because you can click onto their answers, you can have a look at their incorrectly answered ones, and it's really clear to see, you can see down there, the ones that Kinsley in this scenario didn't understand. And it's so simple to see, obviously the 8, 12 and 7 times table is where Kinsley needs to work on. Now let me have a look at that question. I'm so sorry, I don't really understand that question as to what it is that you are skipping. Oh, I think you've got to leave early. That's not a problem. Thank you ever so much for letting me know. Not a problem at all. So yes, you can have a look at those results, and it's so simple to see where those gaps lie. And if we head back over here as well, let's have a look at somebody else. Let's have a look at Ellie, for example. We can have a look at her incorrectly answered questions. Again, 7 times tables is where Ellie is struggling, but she did get 84%, so we can always print her a certificate just there as well. We can even have a look at those who got a really high score. Here we go. So Isaac got a high score here. So we can then set Isaac, instead of the 20 seconds, the 10-second one as more of a challenge. So you can sort of keep doing that, and you can keep sort of updating that information. Henry here, he scored 56%. Maybe Henry needs, you can see he's attempted some of these, he's got those incorrect. So it's more misconceptions with Henry. We need to address those, have a look at those, and we can always add this times tables check into another folder for Henry to have another go at some point. Okay. So that is a brief outline just there of the assessments available to you. Formative and summative assessments available in the assessment area. Obviously, these will differ depending upon your curriculum, but do have a look at those. You'll find some unit assessments as well as reading comprehensions there as well. You can always use the activities for unit assessments as well to see whereabouts your children are at. That data will be tracked in the success tracker. We'll come to that in terms of our next webinar, where we're going to be looking at attainment and addressing gaps in a little more detail. And remember that multiplication tables check, even if your children aren't in England doing the MTC in year 4, doesn't mean you can't still use it. You can see their knowledge of their multiplication tables, and like I said, sort of addressing their inverse commutative law operations there as well. Has anybody got any questions for me? Just going to have a look there. Please do ask if you've got any questions. Here we go. There we are. Whilst we're having a look, some of our FAQs we get asked about our assessments. Number one, do students see the level of assessment? No, they do not. They will only see the title that you give. So again, if you have got any children maybe joining you from another school, you want to see whereabouts they're at, those assessments can be really, really handy. The multiplication tables check, is it marked? Yes, it is. And as I showed you, that data is available to view in the success tracker, along with all other assessments. But join me for part 2 and part 3 of these webinars to have a look at that in a little bit more detail. Finally, why the assessment's different in my school account to that of a friend. This is something that we do get asked quite frequently, and it is purely down to the curriculum that you follow. If you follow the curriculum for excellence, that will appear differently to the National Curriculum 2014. So it really, really is applicable to that, and that alone essentially. So as I said, it would just be a bit different, but do explore the assessments that you have available. Now, if you have got any questions later on, oh, I've got a couple of questions coming. How do we register for part 2 and part 3? Thank you for that, Amy. If you head to educationcity.com, and there is a link there for webinars. If you head onto the webinars tab, you can register for future webinars, and you can also have a look there at previous webinars there as well. So all webinars are recorded and you can watch them in your own time there or on our YouTube page. Thank you for that. Why do we have assessments and what does it mean? The assessments that we have on Education City, as I've already mentioned, are there as per your curriculum, whichever curriculum it is that you follow. Thank you for that, Caitlin. If anybody does have any more questions, I welcome them. Thank you so much for joining me today. You can get in touch, customer service at educationcity.com. That's customer service at educationcity.com. If you want any more information, if there's anything else that we can help with, any questions you have, or any feedback that you'd like to share. Also, can I quickly mention one of our hub schools, Feasy Park Farm, are one of the Department for Education EdTech schools. What they can do is they can sort of help you in terms of your school's EdTech, sort of peer-to-peer support, giving you advice, helping you along. And if you'd like to know a little bit more about that programme, again, do get in touch, customer service at educationcity.com for any more information. Finally, I'm going to be at the Hertz for Learning EdTech event all week. If you would like a one-to-one chat, if you want to know a little bit more, do have a look. That's the Hertz for Learning event. I look forward to seeing you there. Amy, you are very, very welcome. Thank you for taking the time to join me today. I do hope to see you at parts 2 and part 3 of this trilogy. And until then, I will see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.